Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the small blue planet slowly spin below him. The third planet from this yellow star looked peaceful and quiet, but appearances meant nothing in war. He had destroyed 17 civilizations using the same careful plan. Study the enemy for 3 full cycles, find their weak spots, apply pressure until they break. Then collect the survivors as workers for the Empire. The Vorthan military computer had spent months analyzing every detail about the species they called humans. These two-legged creatures built cities and roads. They made art and music. They fought wars among themselves over small pieces of land and strange ideas about invisible sky beings. Most importantly, they seemed to care deeply about their families and their home planet. All of this information told the Vorthan strategists exactly what they needed to know. Humans were just like every other species they had conquered. Sub-Commander Cravel walked up to Veltar holding a datapad filled with psychological profiles of the target species. Sir, the analysis is complete. Humans show all the standard fear responses to overwhelming force. When faced with certain death, they typically surrender to save their offspring and mates. Their emotional attachment to their homeworld makes them predictable. The War Council estimates 48 hours maximum before complete surrender. Veltar nodded approvingly. The Vorthan Empire had perfected the art of conquest through intimidation. Why waste resources fighting when fear could do the work for you? Their ships were massive black triangles that blocked out the sun over major population centers. The psychological impact was always devastating. No species could look up at those dark shapes and not understand their situation was hopeless. On the surface of Earth, Captain Lee Minho sat in his command center deep beneath the city of Seoul. His screens showed the same terrifying sight that people around the world were witnessing: giant alien ships hovering motionless over every major city on the planet. The ships were so large they cast entire districts into shadow. Their dark hulls reflected no light, making them look like holes cut out of the sky itself. The aliens had waited exactly 12 hours after their arrival before making contact. Every television, radio, and computer screen on Earth suddenly displayed the same message. A tall, pale creature with large black eyes spoke in perfect Korean, English, Chinese, and dozens of other human languages, simultaneously, somehow making each person hear it in their native tongue. People of Earth, we are the Vorthan Empire. We have traveled across the galaxy, conquering worlds and adding their populations to our workforce. You have been selected for integration into our civilization. Resistance is futile. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your military forces cannot challenge our technology. You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. Those who submit peacefully will be treated well. Those who resist will be eliminated quickly. We await your response. Lieutenant Park Ji-won looked up from her communication console. Captain, we are receiving similar messages from command centers around the globe. Every major military installation, every government building, every broadcasting station is getting the same transmission. The aliens seem to know exactly where all our important facilities are located. Minho stared at the main screen showing one of the alien ships positioned directly above Seoul. The craft was so massive it covered several city blocks. Its smooth black surface gave no hint of weapons or weak points, but the mere size of it was weapon enough. Any civilization that could build something that large and make it fly between stars clearly had technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Communications Officer Kim Hyuna suddenly spoke up. Captain, I am getting reports from military commanders worldwide. Something strange is happening. The aliens expected us to panic. They expected our leaders to start fighting among themselves. They expected chaos and despair, but that is not what is happening. What do you mean? Minho asked, turning away from the screen. The commanders are laughing, sir. Not just one or two of them, all of them, from generals to squad leaders to individual soldiers. When they heard the alien ultimatum, they started laughing. The aliens are receiving responses, but not the kind they expected. Minho felt a strange sensation building in his chest. He looked back at the enormous alien ship hovering over his city and thought about the arrogant message they had broadcast. The creatures assumed humans would simply give up when faced with superior technology. They believed fear would make humans rational. They had clearly never studied human history very carefully. A smile spread across Minho's face, then a chuckle escaped his lips. The chuckle grew into full Laughter that echoed through the command center. His staff looked at him with concern until they started laughing. 2. The situation was absolutely insane. Giant alien ships had arrived to conquer Earth and demand surrender. The logical response would be terror or despair, but humans had never been particularly logical creatures. Part G1 wiped tears from her eyes as her laughter subsided. Sir, the aliens are probably monitoring our communications. They can hear us laughing at their ultimatum. Good. Minho replied, let them hear it. Let them try to figure out what it means when humans laugh at certain death. On the alien flagship, Commander Veltar frowned at the reports coming in from his monitoring stations. The human response was completely unlike anything in their databases. Instead of panic or desperate attempts to negotiate, the creatures were exhibiting behavior that made no sense. They were laughing, broadcasting jokes, making what appeared to be party preparations in some locations. This is not how conquered species are supposed to behave, Veltar muttered to himself. Commander Cravel approached with a worried expression. Sir, our psychological warfare division is reporting unusual patterns in human communication. They are not responding with fear or despair. They seem to be responding with what can only be described as amusement. The translation computers are having difficulty processing some of their messages because they contain concepts our language has no equivalent for. Show me, Veltar demanded. The main screen displayed a collection of human transmissions from around the planet. Military commanders were broadcasting messages to each other. That made no sense in any military context. They had studied phrases like, "Bring it on" and "hold my beer" appeared frequently, along with references to something called Florida Man and suggestions for increasingly ridiculous ways to respond to the invasion. 1. Transmission from a human military leader particularly puzzled the Vorthan analysts. The message simply said, "Dear aliens, thank you for the new target practice. We were getting bored fighting each other. Love Earth." Veltar felt the first stirrings of unease he had experienced in decades of conquest. The humans were not behaving according to any pattern in Vorthan's strategic databases. When faced with overwhelming force, most species either surrendered immediately or made desperate attempts to negotiate. These creatures seemed to be treating the invasion as some sort of entertainment. Sir, another report from the monitoring stations, Cravel announced. The humans appear to be organizing something. They are calling it a response to our ultimatum, but the nature of their preparations is unclear. Our analysts cannot determine whether they are planning military resistance or some sort of cultural celebration. Let them prepare whatever they want, Veltar said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. 48 hours from now they will surrender, or we will demonstrate why 17 civilizations chose submission over destruction. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that perhaps the Vorthan Empire had encountered something they were not prepared for. The humans were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to understand their hopeless situation. They were supposed to act rationally. Instead, they were laughing and making jokes and planning something that defied all military logic. The next 47 hours would teach the Vorthan Empire that human logic and military logic were completely different things. And when humans stopped following logic altogether, they became something far more dangerous than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. They became creative. The 48-hour deadline had passed, and the Vorthan Empire expected to receive humanity's surrender. Instead, they received something that had never happened in their long history of conquest, a formal invitation to participate in what humans called a friendly competition. Commander Veltar read the message 3 times, trying to understand if the translation computers had malfunctioned. Lieutenant Colonel Troy Deho stood in front of cameras broadcasting to the entire planet and to the alien fleet above. His message was simple and completely insane. We challenge the Vorthan Empire to a contest of creativity. 1 human against 1 alien warrior, same materials, same time limit, 24 hours to build the most effective weapon. Winner takes control of Earth, loser leaves forever. The alien command staff gathered around their leader, trying to process this unprecedented situation. No conquered species had ever responded to invasion with a game show format. Sub-Commander Cravel pulled up files on similar situations but found nothing comparable in their extensive military database. Sir, this appears to be completely outside all known parameters for civilized behavior. Veltar studied the human transmission again. The creature speaking seemed completely serious despite proposing something that violated every principle of interstellar warfare. The logical response would be to ignore this nonsense and proceed with orbital bombardment, yet something about the humans' confidence made him pause. What tactical advantage could they possibly gain from this proposal, he asked his staff. The xenobiologist stepped forward. Sir, our analysis suggests this may be an attempt to buy time for evacuation or to study our technology. However, the humans are requesting that both participants use identical basic materials. No advanced technology from either side would be permitted. This seems to offer them no advantage. Elder considered the situation. The humans were clearly desperate and grasping for any delay they could achieve. But accepting their challenge would provide valuable intelligence about human psychology and demonstrate Vorthan superiority to both civilizations. The entire contest could be broadcast as entertainment. While they prepared for the real conquest very well, he announced, "We accept their pathetic challenge. Select our finest weapons engineer to participate in this charade on Earth." Major Song Nari received notification that she had been selected as humanity's champion. She stood in an abandoned warehouse that had been converted into a workshop identical to the one the aliens would use. The materials were basic metal sheets, plastic components, simple electronics, basic chemicals, and hand tools. Nothing that could be called advanced technology by either species. Her opponent was Vorthan weapons specialist Vekimur, a being who had designed destructive devices for over a century. His workshop was set up in orbit aboard the alien flagship. Both contestants could see each other through video links, and the entire competition was broadcast live to billions of viewers on both Earth and the Vorthan homeworld. Vekimur began immediately following proven engineering principles. He started assembling what was clearly going to be an elegant energy weapon. His movements were precise and efficient, every action serving a clear purpose toward creating maximum destructive capability. The alien worked with the confidence of someone who had solved similar problems countless times before. Nari stood in her workshop drinking coffee and staring at the pile of materials around her. She walked in circles, examining everything from different angles, occasionally picking up random objects and setting them down again. To observers, it looked like she had no plan at all. The Vorthan military analysts concluded she was overwhelmed by the challenge. What the aliens did not understand was that Nari was not trying to build the most powerful weapon. She was trying to build the most unexpected one. Human military doctrine had one advantage over alien precision. It was completely unpredictable because humans themselves were unpredictable. After 6 hours, Vekimur had completed the framework for his plasma discharge device. The weapon would be capable of melting through any known armor and destroying targets at considerable range. His engineering was flawless by every standard the Vorthan Empire used to measure such things. Nari had spent the same 6 hours building what appeared to be a large primitive catapult. The structure looked like something from ancient human history, completely unsuitable for modern warfare. The alien observers laughed at the primitive construction. The humans watching felt growing concern that their champion was building a museum piece instead of a weapon. But Nari was not building just any catapult. She was building a delivery system for something no military strategist in the galaxy had ever considered weaponizing. She worked carefully, preparing her ammunition, which looked like nothing more than glittery dust. The substance sparkled prettily in the workshop lights, appearing completely harmless. Vekimur completed his plasma weapon with 2 hours to spare. The device was beautiful in its deadly efficiency. It could focus tremendous energy into a beam capable of cutting through starship hulls. The Vorthan fleet prepared to celebrate their inevitable victory. No primitive projectile weapon could compete with such advanced destructive capability. The weapon demonstration was scheduled to take place in space above Earth. Both contestants would test their creations against identical targets, decommissioned satellites provided by both civilizations. The results would be broadcast live, allowing everyone to witness Vorthan technological superiority. Commander Veltar felt confident as he watched the final preparations. Humans had revealed their true nature by building primitive weapons when faced with advanced engineering. This contest would demonstrate why the Vorthan Empire ruled 17 star systems while humans remained trapped on a single world. Vekimur's plasma weapon performed exactly as designed. The energy beam struck the target satellite and vaporized it instantly, leaving nothing but glowing particles drifting in space. The destruction was clean, efficient, and undeniably impressive. The Vorthan fleet cheered while human observers watched in worried silence. Then came Nari's turn. She loaded her catapult with what appeared to be a canvas bag filled with metallic dust. The projectile arced slowly through space toward the target satellite, looking pathetic compared to the brilliant energy beam that had preceded it. When the bag struck its target, it burst open, releasing a cloud of glittering particles that spread outward in all directions. The Vorthan observers laughed at the display. Tiny sparkles drifting in space posed no threat to anything. The target satellite remained completely intact and functional. The contest appeared to be over with a decisive alien victory. But then something unexpected happened. The cloud of glitter began to drift toward the nearest Vorthan scout ship, carried by solar wind and gravitational effects. The particles were so small they seemed harmless, like cosmic dust. The ship's automated defense systems detected the approaching material and began standard defensive protocols. Within minutes, alarms began blaring throughout the alien vessel. The sophisticated filtration systems designed to handle cosmic debris and enemy projectiles became completely clogged with glitter. The tiny particles conducted electricity in ways that confused the ship's sensors. Navigation systems failed. Communication arrays went silent, and worst of all, everything began to sparkle. The proud Vorthan scout ship found itself drifting helplessly through space, covered in glitter and broadcasting what sounded like human dance music due to electromagnetic interference. The sight of their advanced warship twinkling like a child's art project while playing disco music broke something fundamental in the Vorthan understanding of warfare. Commander Veltar stared at his tactical display in complete confusion. His species had conquered 17 civilizations using superior technology and logical military strategy, but they had never encountered an enemy that weaponized craft supplies. The glitter was not just annoying, it was specifically designed to interfere with their electronic systems in ways their engineers had never considered possible. Major Nari's voice came over the communication channel, explaining her weapon to the stunned alien fleet. "You can remove glitter from almost anything," she said cheerfully, "but you can never get it all off, and when that glitter is made from conductive metals, specifically designed to mess with electronics, well, your sensors treat it like a computer virus." The Vorthan Empire realized they were facing something completely outside their experience. These humans did not fight according to any military doctrine in their databases. This was not conventional warfare, this was weapons-grade absurdity, and they had no protocols for dealing with creative insanity. Commander Veltar declared the glitter incident a meaningless trick that would not happen again. His fleet had been embarrassed by one disabled scout ship, but the Vorthan Empire controlled hundreds of warships. Each vessel was equipped with weapons capable of destroying cities. The humans had won their silly contest through luck and trickery, but real warfare was about to begin. The first wave of alien attacks targeted Earth's power grids, communication networks, and military installations. The precision strikes were designed to cripple human civilization without destroying valuable resources or killing too many potential workers. The Vorthan military had used this strategy successfully on 16 other worlds within hours. Major cities around the globe went dark, internet connections failed, and military bases found themselves cut off from central command. The aliens expected to see panic and chaos as human society collapsed without its technological foundations. Instead, something much stranger began to happen. Colonel Baisuyan commanded the resistance forces in the ruins of Bizan, where alien strikes had destroyed the main power station. Instead of despair, his engineering teams, led by Sergeant Lim Minseok, discovered that destroyed electrical equipment could be turned into weapons. The massive transformers that once provided electricity to the city now served as components for electromagnetic pulse devices. "We cannot fight their ships with conventional weapons," Lim explained to his colonel as they worked in the wreckage of the power plant, "but we can build EMP generators from this destroyed equipment." The aliens use advanced electronics, which means they are vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. The idea spread rapidly through human resistance networks. Destroyed infrastructure became raw material for improvised weapons. Power stations became EMP factories. Collapsed bridges provided metal for projectile systems. Even playground equipment was repurposed. into launching mechanisms for homemade electromagnetic devices. Captain Yu Sungnin monitored the global situation from Seoul's underground command bunker. Reports flooded in from around the world showing the same pattern everywhere: human military forces were not trying to rebuild their destroyed facilities. Instead, they were using the wreckage to create new types of weapons that the aliens had never encountered in. New York Marine Captain Park Soo-young had turned the subway system into a massive audio weapon. Using salvage speakers and amplifiers connected to the underground tunnel network, her team created a sound system capable of broadcasting across the entire city. The noise they produced was specifically designed to be as psychologically disturbing as possible. The sound was a mixture of screaming children, fingernails on chalkboards, and heavy metal music played backwards at random intervals and volumes. The cacophony echoed through the tunnels and emerged from subway grates throughout Manhattan, creating an urban nightmare of audio chaos. Vorthen ground troops attempting to occupy the city found themselves unable to concentrate or communicate. The alien species had evolved enhanced hearing for hunting on their homeworld, which made them extremely sensitive to acoustic warfare. The carefully designed noise attacked their nervous systems, directly causing disorientation and panic. Within hours, the elite Vorthen occupation forces were either fleeing Manhattan or huddled in corners with their hands over their ears. The most advanced military units in the galaxy had been defeated by angry music and playground sounds broadcast through a train system. Diarkanjie, a behavioral psychologist who had become a resistance leader, realized that humans were accidentally conducting the most effective psychological warfare campaign in galactic history. They were not trying to defeat the aliens through superior technology or better tactics. They were trying to annoy them into submission. The human approach to warfare was completely unlike anything the Vorthen Empire had studied. Humans treated military conflict like an elaborate prank war where the goal was to frustrate and confuse the enemy rather than simply destroy them. This strategy was working because the aliens had no training for dealing with opponents who refused to follow military logic. Lieutenant Commander Nelyoso coordinated resistance activities from her command post in Tokyo. Her teams had discovered that broken television sets could be modified into radar jammers. Old washing machines provided components for makeshift rocket launchers. Even kitchen appliances became part of the growing arsenal of improvised weapons. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that turned garbage into weapons. Every piece of destroyed equipment became a potential threat. Every abandoned building might hide some new form of absurd warfare the Vorthen forces had trained for centuries to fight civilized opponents who used proper military equipment, but humans were not civilized in any way. The aliens understood civilization to the Vorthen Empire meant following established rules and using appropriate technology. Humans seemed to believe that rules were suggestions and appropriate technology was whatever happened to be lying. Around Major General Seo Jungwoo observed the global conflict from Earth's primary command bunker. The aliens had superior firepower, advanced shields, and centuries of military experience, but they also had something that was proving to be a fatal weakness. They had predictable thinking patterns. Every Vorthen tactical decision followed logical principles, based on maximizing efficiency and minimizing risk. Human tactical decisions seemed to be based on maximizing confusion and minimizing sense. This fundamental difference in approach was causing increasing problems for the alien invasion force. The Vorthen fleet commanders found themselves dealing with situations that had no precedent in their military databases. How do you plan a strategy against enemies who use disco music as a weapon? How do you defend against attacks launched from playground equipment? How do you maintain troop morale when the enemy keeps hitting you with glitter? Reports from Vorthen ground commanders described increasingly bizarre encounters. Human resistance fighters were using rubber ducks as grenades by filling them with homemade explosives. Traffic cones had been weaponized into rocket launchers. Children's bicycles were being converted into mobile weapons, platforms that could launch anything from rocks to more glitter. The psychological impact on Vorthen forces was severe. Their military training emphasized honor, duty, and logical tactical thinking, but it was impossible to maintain dignity while being attacked by modified kitchen appliances and children's toys. The war was becoming a nightmare of absurdity that challenged everything they believed about civilized warfare. Sub-Commander Cravel reported to his commander that Vorthan troops were beginning to suffer from what could only be described as combat-related humor fatigue. The constant exposure to weaponized nonsense was affecting their ability to take the war seriously, which was undermining their combat effectiveness. Commander Veltar realized that his forces were losing not because humans had better weapons or superior tactics, but because they had weaponized creativity. Itself, the Vorthan Empire had conquered 17 civilizations by being more logical, more efficient, and more technologically advanced than their enemies, but humans were not trying to be better at warfare. They were trying to be weirder at warfare. And in a conflict between logic and creative insanity, the side willing to use rubber ducks as weapons was proving to have a significant advantage. The aliens had planned for everything except the possibility that their enemies would treat interstellar warfare like an art project conducted by insane people with access to a hardware store. The war had been going on for 3 months, and Commander Veltar was beginning to understand that he faced an enemy unlike anything in Vorthan history. The humans refused to fight like a proper civilization. Instead, they seemed to treat the invasion as an opportunity to test increasingly ridiculous weapons and tactics. His latest intelligence reports read like documents from an insane asylum. Human resistance fighters in Australia had trained kangaroos to carry explosive devices. In Canada, they were using hockey sticks to launch grenades while shouting incomprehensible battle cries. In Brazil, they had somehow weaponized carnival music and were using it to drive Vorthan troops to madness. The aliens had responded by escalating their own tactics. They brought in heavier weapons, more troops, and advanced warfare specialists, but every escalation was met by humans finding new ways to turn the situation into chaos. Major cities had been evacuated and turned into elaborate obstacle courses filled with traps that made no military sense. Colonel Baisuyan reported from the ruins of Seoul, where his forces had discovered that abandoned shopping malls made excellent fortress bases. The large open spaces could be filled with improvised weapons, while the many stores provided materials for creating new forms of warfare. His teams were currently working on a project they called the Glitter Bomb Factory. We have taken the original glitter weapon concept and expanded it, he explained. In a broadcast to other resistance cells, we are now producing glitter mixed with itching powder that sticks to alien armor. We have glitter that smells like rotten fish. We have glitter that makes electronic systems play children's music. We have even developed glow-in-the-dark glitter that makes their stealth technology useless. The Vorthan military analysts trying to counter these weapons found themselves writing reports that sounded like comedy sketches rather than serious military intelligence. Their computers struggled to classify threats that included weaponized silly string modified whoopee cushions and something humans called the ultimate prank war. Arsenal Captain Park Soo-young had expanded her audio warfare program beyond the New York subway system. Her teams were now broadcasting psychological warfare content from every speaker system they could control. The programming included crying babies at volumes that could shatter glass, recordings of dental drills mixed with opera music, and something called death metal played through ice cream truck speakers. The combination of sounds was so disturbing that Vorthan troops had begun wearing protective gear over their ears, but this made communication impossible during combat. Many alien units had simply retreated from urban areas, entirely unable to function in the acoustic nightmare that human cities had become. Dr. Kwan Jie documented the psychological impact of the conflict on both sides while Vorthan forces suffered from confusion and frustration. Human resistance fighters seemed to be having the time of their lives. The war had given them permission to be as creative and destructive as possible while feeling heroic about it. Humans were treating the invasion like the world's most dangerous art project, she reported to the global resistance leadership. They are competing with each other to see who can invent the most ridiculous but effective weapon. The aliens trained for centuries to fight logical enemies. But logic is the one thing humans have completely abandoned. Lieutenant Commander Ne Yasil coordinated what had become known as the Great Garbage Offensive. Human forces around the world were collecting every piece of useless junk they could find. and launching it at alien positions. The strategy was based on the simple observation that alien technology worked perfectly until it encountered something completely random. Earthen ships were designed to deflect missiles and energy beams, but they had no defense against attacks consisting of old furniture, broken electronics, expired food, and thousands of rubber toys. The alien point defense systems would lock onto incoming projectiles expecting weapons, but instead finding themselves trying to shoot down flying toilets and used refrigerators. The psychological impact was devastating. Vorthan warriors, who had trained their entire lives for honorable combat, found themselves under attack from household appliances. Their weapons would successfully destroy the incoming junk, but being forced to use advanced military technology to shoot garbage was destroying their morale and sense of purpose. Major General Seo Jungwoo observed that the aliens were beginning to make mistakes in their tactical planning. The constant exposure to human insanity was affecting their ability to think clearly. Vorthan commanders were starting to second-guess obvious military decisions because they expected humans to do something unexpected. This paranoia was justified because humans were indeed planning something unexpected. The global resistance had been working on what they called the ultimate chaos protocol, a coordinated worldwide effort to simultaneously attack every alien position with the most ridiculous weapons they could create. The plan was simple. Every human settlement would launch everything they had at the alien fleet at exactly the same time. The attack would consist entirely of junk, art supplies, household items, and anything else that served no military purpose but might confuse alien targeting systems. Fleet Admiral Han Jinwoo commanded the effort from humanity's improvised flagship that had been constructed from salvaged alien technology, human engineering, and what could only be described as weaponized interior decorating. The vessel was painted bright pink with purple polka dots and had been equipped with speakers that played circus music during combat. The ship itself was a perfect example of human military philosophy. It was functional enough to serve as a command center, but ridiculous enough to make alien targeting computers question whether it was actually a threat. The Vorthan fleet had spent weeks trying to classify the vessel and still could not decide if it was a warship or some kind of elaborate joke. Preparation for the ultimate chaos protocol involved every human on Earth contributing something to the effort. Children donated toys, adults provided furniture, and appliances. Factories that had been converted to weapons production began manufacturing items designed to be as confusing as possible rather than as destructive as possible. The resistance had learned that confusion was more valuable than destruction against the Vorthan Empire. A weapon that killed alien soldiers could be countered with better armor or shields, but a weapon that made alien soldiers question their sanity had no effective countermeasure. Commander Cravel reported to his commander that Vorthan forces were experiencing what military psychologists called reality dissociation syndrome, the constant exposure to warfare that violated every principle of military logic was causing troops to lose confidence in their training and judgment. Sir, our soldiers no longer trust their own tactical instincts, he explained. They have been conditioned to expect logical military responses from enemies, but humans provide only illogical civilian responses. Our troops are paralyzed by uncertainty because they cannot predict what these creatures will do next. Commander Veltar realized that his empire faced a strategic problem that had no solution in their military doctrine. The Vorthan Empire conquered civilizations by being more advanced, more logical, and more militarily competent than their enemies. But humans were not trying to be better at war, they were trying to be incomprehensible at war. The final phase of human resistance was about to begin, and it would demonstrate that in a conflict between superior technology and unlimited creativity, the side willing to use birthday decorations as weapons held a significant advantage over opponents who insisted on making military sense. 6 months of warfare had pushed the Vorthan Empire to the edge of complete military breakdown. Commander Veltar stood on his bridge staring at reports that read like fever dreams rather than intelligence briefings. His forces controlled no territory on Earth. Despite having superior weapons and overwhelming numbers, the humans had turned their entire planet into a chaotic battlefield where nothing made sense. The final mistake came when the Vorthan High Command decided to end the war with their Ultimate Weapon, a planet cracker device capable of splitting worlds in half. The massive weapon was positioned in orbit above Earth and charged with enough energy to destroy continents. Its mere presence should have terrified any rational species into immediate surrender. Fleet Admiral Han Jinwoo received the alien ultimatum aboard his polka-dotted flagship. The message was broadcast to every human settlement: Earth surrender in 24 hours or watch your world die. The weapon would demonstrate Vorthan power by cracking Earth like an egg unless humanity submitted to slavery instead. Of panic, the response was immediate and universal. Every human settlement, from major cities to remote villages, began launching their ultimate counter attack, but it was not missiles or nuclear weapons that rose toward the alien fleet. It was something far more dangerous to alien psychology: the contents of humanity's attic basements and garbage dumps. Lieutenant Commander Na Yasuo coordinated the global effort from her command post in Tokyo. The operation was called Project Yard Sale, and its goal was simple: launch everything humans had ever thrown away directly at the Vorthan fleet. The plan was based on the observation that alien targeting computers became confused when presented with objects that served no military purpose. Millions of humans began loading improvised rockets with compressed garbage: old televisions, broken furniture, expired food products, used clothing, children's toys, and anything else they could find. The launches were coordinated to arrive at the alien fleet simultaneously, creating a cloud of debris that would surround the Vorthan ships. Major General Seo Jungwoo watched from Earth's command bunker as the first wave of garbage rockets reached orbit. The alien fleet found itself surrounded by slowly expanding clouds of household junk that defied all military classification. Their sensors detected washing machines floating past battleships, rubber ducks drifting near weapons platforms, and thousands of other objects that had no business being in space. The Vorthan planet cracker weapon required precise targeting calculations and clear lines of sight to function properly. Its operators found themselves trying to aim through a debris field consisting of refrigerators, mattresses, broken computers, and what appeared to be an entire laundromat worth of used clothing. Weapons specialist Thekmar reported to his commander that the targeting system was experiencing cascading failures. The computer was designed to identify and prioritize military threats, but it could not classify most of the objects surrounding the fleet. Everything from kitchen appliances to children's bicycles was being flagged as potential weapons because humans had previously weaponized similar items. The situation became worse when the debris field began interfering with the fleet's movement systems. Vorthan ships were designed for combat in clean space environments, where obstacles were either other ships or natural objects like asteroids. They had no protocols for navigating through clouds of animated household goods. Dr. Kanjie observed from her resistance post that the aliens were experiencing what she called systematic military breakdown. Their entire approach to warfare was based on categories and procedures, but humans had created a situation that fit no categories and followed no procedures. The breaking point came when Chief Petty Officer Yoon Seojin led a small shuttle mission directly to the Vorthan flagship. Instead of attempting to board the enemy ship for combat, he broadcast a simple message to Commander Veltar requesting permission to come aboard for what he called a friendly chat over coffee and donuts. The request was so absurd that it short-circuited Vorthan military protocols. No enemy in their history had ever asked for social visits during active warfare. The alien command staff spent several hours debating how to respond to an invitation that violated every principle of military engagement. Sub-Commander Cravel argued that the humans were obviously planning some kind of trick or trap, but intelligence analysis could find no precedent for using coffee meetings as military tactics. The request seemed genuine, which made it more disturbing than any direct threat. Commander Veltar finally agreed to the meeting, partly from curiosity and partly from desperation. The war had become so incomprehensible that even enemy social visits seemed less strange than everything else humans had done. The meeting would take place in the human shuttle under what Seojin cheerfully called neutral party conditions. The shuttle docked with the Vorthan flagship, and Veltar found himself sitting in a tiny cramped space, drinking a bitter beverage and eating circular pastries covered in colorful sprinkles. Seojun explained the human position with the casual attitude of someone discussing weekend plans rather than interstellar warfare. The thing is, he said, offering the alien commander another donut, you folks seem to think war has rules, but humans don't really do rules when we're fighting for survival. We just do whatever works, and if it doesn't work, we try something weirder until something does work. Valtar realized he was listening to the most honest explanation of human military doctrine he had received during the entire war. These creatures did not have strategies or tactics in any sense. His species understood they had an unlimited willingness to try random things until something produced results. Admiral Han joined the conversation, bringing more coffee and what he called peace pastries. The human leader explained that they held no hostility toward the Vorthan Empire. You seem like decent folks who just got some bad advice about how to conquer planets, he said. Maybe next time try asking Nuzly first. We're actually pretty friendly once you get to know us. The casual tone of the discussion was more unsettling to Veltar than any military threat. These humans were treating his invasion fleet like annoying neighbors who had made too much noise rather than enemies in a life or death struggle. Their complete lack of fear or hatred was somehow more disturbing than anger would have been. As the conversation continued, Veltar began to understand that his empire had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that treated existential threats as problem-solving exercises. Humans did not have superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had something far more dangerous, the ability to think sideways around any obstacle. The meeting ended with Han suggesting that both sides should probably stop shooting at each other and work out their differences like civilized beings. The casual way he proposed ending an interstellar war over coffee and donuts demonstrated that humans approached every situation, including their own potential extinction, with the same creative flexibility. Commander Veltar returned to his ship with the growing realization that the Vorthan Empire had made a fundamental error in attacking Earth. They had assumed humans were just another logical species that could be conquered through superior force, but humans were not logical. They were adaptive, and their adaptability made them far more dangerous than any weapon. Commander Veltar sat in his command chair staring at tactical displays that showed his fleet surrounded by floating garbage, while his most powerful weapon was unable to target anything through the debris field. The Vorthan Empire's greatest military force had been neutralized by household appliances and party decorations. His officers looked to him for orders, but there were no orders that made sense in this situation. The peace negotiations continued in the tiny human shuttle where Chief Petty Officer Yoon Seojin served coffee to alien military commanders as if hosting a neighborhood barbecue. The casual atmosphere was more effective at breaking down Vorthan resistance than any weapon could have been. Admiral Han explained humanity's perspective while offering cookies to alien officers. We never wanted to fight you, he said in the tone of someone discussing a minor misunderstanding. You showed up and demanded we become slaves, which seemed unreasonable, so we defended ourselves. The only way we know how, by making everything as confusing as possible until you decided to leave. Commander Cravel tried to maintain military protocol during the negotiations, but found it impossible when the enemy kept offering him snacks and asking about his family. The humans treated the Vorthan invasion force like houseguests who had overstayed their welcome rather than enemies in a war. The psychological impact was devastating to Vorthan military, thinking they had been trained to deal with hatred, fear, and desperate resistance, but they had no training for dealing with opponents who responded to invasion attempts with hospitality and genuine concern for alien well-being. Dr. Kwon Jie joined the negotiations as humanities expert on interspecies psychology. She explained to the confused aliens that humans had never intended to humiliate or defeat the Vorthan Empire. We were just trying to survive, she said, and when humans are trying to survive, we get creative, very creative. The peace treaty was drafted on napkins in the shuttle's galley while both sides shared snacks and discussed their respective cultures. The Vorthan Empire agreed to leave Earth alone and establish formal diplomatic relations in exchange. Humanity offered to share their creative problem-solving techniques with other civilizations facing impossible challenges. Fleet Admiral Han suggested that the Vorthan Empire might benefit from human approaches to warfare, not for conquest, but for Defense: any species that attacks you will expect logical military responses, he explained, but if you respond with weaponized birthday parties and tactical glitter cannons, they won't know what to do. The idea of the galaxy's most powerful military force adopting human tactics was absurd enough to appeal to the aliens who had spent months being confused by those same tactics. Commander Veltar realized that his empire had been thinking about warfare in limited ways for centuries perhaps. It was time to consider more creative approaches. Lieutenant Commander Ney Yasil presented the aliens with a gift package containing samples of human military innovations. The collection included instructions for building glitter weapons, audio warfare systems, and improvised rocket launchers made from playground equipment. She cheerfully explained that all the designs were open source and could be modified for alien physiology. The peace ceremony took place in space, between the human flagship and the Vorthan command vessel. Both ships were decorated with streamers and balloons at human insistence. The formal signing was broadcast to both civilizations, showing alien military commanders wearing party hats while exchanging documents with humans dressed in military uniforms covered in glitter. Colonel Bei Su-yeon delivered the closing speech of the ceremony on behalf of Earth. He thanked the Vorthan Empire for what he called the most interesting war humanity had ever experienced, and invited them to return anytime they wanted to test new weapons or tactics against human creativity. We learned a lot about ourselves during this conflict, he said. We discovered that when faced with impossible odds, humans don't give up or despair. We get silly, and apparently being silly is an effective military strategy against logical opponents. Commander Veltar returned to his homeworld with a complete report that fundamentally changed Vorthan understanding of warfare. The Empire's military academies began offering courses on unconventional tactical responses and psychological warfare through absurdity. The glitter incident became required reading for all strategic planning divisions. The war had lasted 8 months and ended with the most powerful military force in the galaxy learning that superior technology and logical tactics were useless against opponents who refused to follow any rules. The humans had not won through better weapons or superior strategy. They had won by being unpredictably creative when facing certain death. Earth became famous throughout the galaxy as the planet where military logic went to die. Humanity's reputation as friendly but completely unpredictable beings spread across star systems, ensuring that no other species would ever mistake their willingness to help for weakness or their creativity for lack of intelligence. The Vorthan Empire discovered that their greatest military asset was not their advanced weapons or strategic thinking, but their ability to adapt new ideas from unexpected sources. They began recruiting human advisors for their military planning divisions and found that conflicts which had previously required years of fighting could be resolved in weeks. Using creative approaches, other civilizations in the galaxy began requesting human assistance with their own military problems, not because humans were better fighters, but because they were better at finding solutions that no one else would think of. The phrase "thinking like a human" became synonymous with creative problem solving across dozens of worlds. Major General Seo Jungwoo established Earth's first intergalactic military consulting service, offering training in unconventional warfare techniques to any species willing to learn. The program's motto was "When logic fails, try something weird," and it became popular with civilizations facing seemingly impossible military challenges. The peace treaty included provisions for regular cultural exchanges between Earth and the Vorthan homeworld. Human artists and engineers visited alien worlds to share their approaches to creative problem solving, while Vorthan scientists and military strategists came to Earth to study human methods of turning everyday objects into weapons. Commander Veltar eventually retired from military service and wrote a book about the invasion titled "How Humans Taught Me That War Is Just Another Word for Aggressive Problem Solving." The book became required reading at military academies across the galaxy and established him as an expert on human military psychology. The war ended with both species becoming allies and friends. The Vorthan Empire learned that conquest was less effective than cooperation, while humanity learned that their greatest strength was not their technology or courage, but their willingness to try anything when faced with impossible situations. In The years that followed, other aggressive civilizations occasionally threatened Earth, but these conflicts never lasted long. Word had spread throughout the galaxy that humans responded to military threats by turning warfare into performance art, and most species decided that diplomacy was preferable to being attacked with weaponized household goods. The legacy of the conflict was a fundamental change in how galactic civilizations approached warfare. The old model of conquest through superior technology was replaced by creative approaches that emphasized problem solving. Over destruction, humans had not just defended their world, they had accidentally revolutionized military thinking across the galaxy by proving that madness and creativity were often the same thing.